likely Florida voters, with some key demographics shifting their support from 2016. Biden is up with black voters by 72 points, women by 17, independent voters by 11. And it is a statistical tie among seniors, which is a demographic group that Trump won by 17 points, according to 2016 exit polls. That must be pandemic related, you would think. President Trump holds an advantage among men by 20 points. White voters by 15, white voters without a college degree by 28 points, and among Latinos by 4 points, which is a statistical tie. We're going to have more on that in just a moment. But in the latest Morning Consult poll, Biden holds a 6-point lead nationally over President Trump, 50 to 44%. Among key battleground states, Biden is up by 10 in Michigan, up by 8 in Wisconsin, by 6 in Colorado, by 5 in Florida, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota, by 3 in Arizona, by 1 in North Carolina. The two are tied in Texas. And President Trump holds a 2-point lead in Georgia and a 5-point lead in Ohio.
Yeah, Jonathan Lemire, a lot to go through there. I've got to start with, we're talking about polls that seem to be a little bit outside the margins. That Pennsylvania poll showing 9 points. That's really looks like an outlier. Maybe it's a sign of things to come. Same thing with Arizona, sitting at about 2 or 3 percentage points there. That's been a more comfortable lead for Biden, and still is showing up as a more comfortable lead in most states. But I mean, in most polls about Arizona. But you look at all of these numbers, and again, it shows a steady, solid lead for Joe Biden. Here we are, a week past the conventions, a week past Kenosha, and I remember you and me talking in early August saying, hey, you know, Trump keeps saying I've got 3 months. His staff was trying to say, well, no, Mr. President, early voting starts soon enough. Well, early voting has started, and these numbers are not moving in Trump's direction, except for what we're about to talk about after this, about Hispanics in the state of Florida. But other than that, boy, these polls are pretty solid.
Yeah, it's striking, Joe, despite the spectacle of the conventions and obviously the tumult we've seen on the streets in Kenosha and Portland, things that the Republicans thought would all benefit President Trump, just how stable this race remains. Yes, I think that you're right on that Pennsylvania poll. That seems to be an outlier. Neither campaign thinks the margin is anywhere near that big, though both agree that Joe Biden right now is up, but by a smaller amount. I think there are a few things to go through here. One is that there seems to be sort of a little bit of disconnect in some of these states. I know we're going to dive in deeper into Florida in a moment. The idea that Florida certainly is a state where there has been some tightening, yet a demographically similar state, Arizona, has not been the case. That one poll aside, Joe Biden's had a pretty healthy lead there. Same with the Great Lakes states, the Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Michigan, throughout this race, has been a Joe Biden's probably best battleground state. He's had a pretty sizable lead, to the point where earlier this spring and summer, Joe, we talked at length about how the Trump campaign had all but thrown in the towel in Michigan. They've reversed course there now. They feel like they see some movement. They've invested more money there. But certainly Biden is still up. He still enjoys a pretty decent lead in Wisconsin, too, despite all of the energy that the Trump campaign has poured into Wisconsin, thinking that Kenosha would be the turning point. But yet, while those two still lean pretty clearly to Biden, Pennsylvania, this one poll aside, looks like more of a toss-up, although it is hard to imagine a scenario where Joe Biden would actually lose Pennsylvania, his native state, where he has such strength, both in the cities of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, but also in the Northeast, in Scranton, where he's from, that part of it, and most of all in the Philadelphia suburbs. There's a sense that that T in the middle of the state, the red T of rural voters, there probably just aren't quite enough votes there for Donald Trump this time around. Though, of course, he did pull it out narrowly 4 years ago. There's also another factor here. As much as the Trump campaign is pointing to that they're putting ads up in the next few days. There is an issue about money. They have not released their fundraising total in August yet, which is striking. Here we are, September 9th, or coming up on September 10th and 11th, and they still haven't done it. That's days late after the Biden campaign put up a record $350 million or more fundraising haul from August. The Trump campaign has remained silent, and they're looking to expand the map because they are so nervous about states like Arizona, and they're trying to figure out paths to 270. They realize they've got to figure out some other states to put in play, which is why we're seeing this late investment in Minnesota, and now heading this weekend, Nevada. That's another state, Nevada, where the Trump campaign feels like they have to play, because otherwise, if they lose Arizona, there's no path to 270.